Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. And welcome to what looks to be graduation day here in Moore County.
Yes.
In the last year, can you count how many shows we've had, Dorothy, that involved students of some ilk from either from middle school through high school?
I think it would be easier to count the shows that we didn't involve students. There's less of them.
And what do we always say about the proactive students, the ones who are either achieving in the arts or academics, athletics? How much we'd love to have them on and see that they're taking responsibility for their lives.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at Facebook, there are pictures today of students moving from going into kindergarten, going into middle school, getting out of middle school, getting out of high school, going into high school. Transitions that are being made, and with all the young families moving into Moore County, we have a show today that is specially earmarked towards all those families and all those kids from all those ages about college opportunities, educational opportunities that benefit them here in Moore County. And guess what?
What?
The school we're talking about is Pembroke, UNC Pembroke, which when I first moved here in 1999, in my awareness, Pembroke was a school that was sort of tangential to Moore County. In the last 15 years or so, every year, Pembroke seems to have forged a way through the circle where there's a direct effect on Moore County students and options that I think a lot of parents might not be aware of. We're going to talk today with a distinguished panel, which includes the Chancellor, Dr. Robin Cummings, Provost, Dr. David Ward, Jody Phelps, who is the Executive Director of University Communication and Marketing, and Al Mangum. And Al, you have a history with Pembroke that I was not aware of, and I'd love you to tell that story very briefly.
Well, my wife is an Oxendine. She grew up on the college campus. Her dad was the original dean, Clifton Oxendine, of the school. And I had a brother who became a Methodist minister there and ministered for a number of years at Pembroke to the Lumbies. And after getting out of the military, I went to a broadcast school in Washington, D.C. I grew up in southern Maryland. And so my first job was in Lumberton. And so I was doing the night show at WTSB, which is a small AM station at that time, and then also carrying 14 hours as a freshman. Even though I'd been to a professional broadcast school, I'd never been to college. So anyhow, and my wife Betty was a senior. And interestingly enough, her dad was my history professor in as a freshman. And so when I would show up at his house, you know, it was kind of intimidating. And back then, there was not a lot of Caucasian Indian marriages.
Right.
But Betty had already gotten a teaching job in Detroit. And so I said, you know what, I'll just get a radio job. And we were kind of engaged. And so we were about 50 miles away, and I could only see her on weekends. But eventually we got married. It was against the law in 1961 to get married in North Carolina. So we had
Is that right?
We had a justice of the peace marry us in Detroit, and then we had our church wedding, which my brother helped officiate down in Pembroke.
Wow.
About 2 days later. So that's the beginning, and Betty and my brother both have been very instrumental in a lot of the things that have been positive in Pembroke.
I've had the privilege of working with a couple of their professors who purchased homes here in Moore County, Jane Halliday for one and Laura Stahl for another. And I was talking to Robin before the show. Pembroke has a very storied history that not a lot of people are fully aware of. There's so much information on social media with so many schools, but Pembroke's story is worth telling.
Yeah, Bill, it really is a very, very unique story. And let me just say thank you for all that you do. This show, Moore County is blessed to have so many people who work so hard to make it a special place to live.
Right.
And you're among those people. So thank you. I know of your history and all the good things you've done. So thank you for all you do for Moore County.
Thank you.
And thank you for this opportunity to be here to talk about the University of North Carolina at Pembroke today.
Thank you.
So UNC Pembroke is 131 years old.
Crazy.
It's the third oldest university in North Carolina. UNC Chapel Hill, Fayetteville State University, number 2, and we're number 3, March 7th, 1887.
Mm-hmm.
We were established because of the work of 7 American Indian men, 7 members of the Lumbee tribe, who at that time, back in 1887, realized that their children did not have access to education. And so they felt that was not something that they could let stand. They were befriended and worked with a white legislator from Red Springs by the name of Hamilton McMillan. And Representative McMillan went with these 7 men to Raleigh, and they came back with a piece of paper that gave them permission to establish a normal school, a school to teach teachers. And they also came back with $500, which in 1887 was quite a bit of money. So they used that money in order to hire faculty. The local community built a single-room wooden structure. You started with 1 teacher and 15 students on a piece of land that was donated by the local community. And from that has grown the University of North Carolina at Pembroke.
Mm-hmm.
It's a unique history. Mm-hmm. It's the UNC Pembroke is the only 4-year accredited university in the United States that was started by American Indians for American Indians. We are recognized by the North Carolina legislature as North Carolina's historically American Indian University. Now, but we're proud of our history, but it doesn't define us completely as we move into the future.
Right.
So today, UNC Pembroke has evolved into one of the most diverse campuses in the South, according to U.S. News and World Report, something we're very, very proud of. We're 6,300 students, 41 undergraduate majors, 17 graduate majors, and there's a lot going on that we're going to grow in the future. And we are an access. We include Moore County as part of our 10-county footprint.
Mm-hmm.
We have a great relationship with John Dempsey over at Sand Hills Community College, great relationship with Dave Kolarski here at First Health, as well as many others. We have 3 of our board members are from Moore County who serve on our Board of Trustees. So very close relationship, incredible history.
Really a simple question for all the new people who are moving into Moore County. As the crow flies, how far is your campus from where we are?
I would guess 56 minutes.
Why would I know that that's exact? Right?
So, yeah, it depends on traffic, but it's certainly less than an hour, and it's an easy drive.
You referenced we in describing part of the history of Pembroke, and there's a reason why you referenced we, because you are part of that community. That's where you grew up. That's where you met your wife. You made a journey out and back to your roots, so you're not overseeing a school that you were not used to. You grew up, there were some stories about your father in a great Pine Straw article. And but you're back to your roots, are you not?
Yeah. So I grew up 3 miles from UNC Pembroke in a community called Union Chapel Community, just outside Pembroke, the town of Pembroke.
Right.
25-acre farm. I was the second youngest of 9 kids. Dad was a Methodist minister, knew Reverend Mangum, Al's brother, close friends. Worked together closely for 40 years while my dad was a minister down in the area. But grew up, had a good childhood, enjoyed my childhood, moved away and went to Chapel Hill to undergraduate and then to Duke to medical school, became a physician, decided I wanted to be a heart surgeon, and was blessed enough to go, as folks say, from the cotton fields of a 25-acre farm to holding a human heart in my hand for over 3,000 times. That was a wonderful experience, blessed, I believe, to be able to do that. But there was a reason I had to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It was not by choice. It was a health issue. And by a pathway, doors closing, doors opening, I now had the opportunity then, about 3 years ago, had the opportunity to return back to UNC Pembroke.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, was never on my radar. But as I looked at it and talked to people, it certainly became something that was dear to me. I had one friend call me one night, and he had called me several times trying to entice me to look at the job. And I finally had said, no, I'm not interested. I've got other things that I'm thinking about. And he said, well, Robin, I'm not going to call you again. He said, if you decide to come back to Pembroke, it's because you are going to be called like your father was called. And I said, well, that's hitting below the belt. And when he hung up and later on, I thought about that. And so I began to look at it. And it really became, from my wife, Rebecca, both of us looked at it carefully. Mm-hmm. And after some period of decision, we decided to look. And we feel absolutely blessed to be where we are.
Your wife, Rebecca, who I know as a real estate broker and a friend over the years, you all met. You weren't high school sweethearts. We were
middle school.
To elementary school to middle school.
Well, not quite elementary now. I mean, there's some legal
early.
things we're getting in. No, so the high school that's located right next to the university was what we local folks call the old high school. Mm-hmm. So way back yonder, you had an elementary school and a high school for the Indian population. And I attended the elementary school, and over time they built a new school that became the high school, and what was the old high school became a middle school of 7th and 8th graders. And so Rebecca and I found ourselves at the middle school together. I was the 8th grade, she was in the 7th grade, and we met one another and been friends ever since.
You made a statement about some of the changes in your career over time, some things in your power and some things with it not in your power. But we talked a little bit earlier about the power of being able to reinvent yourself. They should teach that class in college for people. But you have done that, and it's like a new beginning each chapter, and it's a wonderful, it's a freedom to say you can do that. Not everyone does it.
So it would have been better, I think, to learn it in a classroom and maybe take a test on it as opposed to life teaching it to me.
Right.
It was tough.
Right.
I had worked for many years through medical school, through 9 years of training at Duke, a very intense time, and finally had arrived. And for 10 years, I was a cardiac surgeon here in Moore County over at First Health, worked with John Cranert. Dr. Cranert had established the program a year or so before I got here, and very successful year. 2 years in a row, our program was recognized as a top 100 program in the United States for its clinical outcome results. So very, very happy. And then when that day came, when I realized that you'll never operate again, it was like going through a divorce, like a death. It was an incredible period of time, and for about 6 months, I was pretty depressed, actually. Maybe not clinically so, but certainly to some degree. And finally, Rebecca said, "Get out of the house. I'm tired of you. Go find something to do. You can do other things." And so I did, and I started volunteering and finding out what my skill set. What can I do? Who am I? And over a period of about 2 years, realized that, I had options, and thank goodness that I had education, which is why I'm so committed, Bill, to education. Education is a pathway to the future, but it also always gives you options. And we encourage our students at Pembroke, number one, certainly get your education, because it does give you options for the future. Right. Pursue it, work hard, and it will always be a foundation for you.
Right. There's a very gentle touch in between the lines of what you're saying. In one way, you reached out to patients. Now you're reaching out to students, and you're just catching them at a different stage in their lives.
Yes.
But it's still the same work, executed a little bit differently. Part of the changes that you've made last year, you brought in a new provost, Dr. David Ward, I think in June of 2017, and your resume, David, is pretty impressive. And when I saw that you graduated from Colgate University, I right away wanted to know when you graduated, because I went to nearby Lafayette, and we used to compete in golf, but we were in different decades.
We were. I wouldn't get into Colgate now, though.
I wouldn't get into Lafayette now either. Right.
It's been a wonderful year, actually. I just wrapped up that year, and if I could piggyback on one thing I heard you and Chancellor Cummings talking about there, that notion of the power of reinventing oneself, and,
yes.
and you wish you had a class in that.
What a gift!
I'm going to make the argument that that is what university and college is all about, and every one of our graduates leaves, they think they have a career choice, but the reality is they leave with the power to reinvent themselves. That is what
right.
liberal arts underpinning of a general education, even if you're there to become ultimately a nurse or an engineer or a scientist, you have that power in you because of that deep education across all of our disciplines. So it's not one course, but rather all of them, and the environment.
Tell me how you've authored 6 books. You've been recognized in education. You've had a very varied career. How did you evolve to get to southeastern or central North Carolina at Pembroke? Because you're obviously not from this area.
I did not grow up there. That is correct.
Okay, I can see that.
And, well, you may see it and others hear it. I may speak a little differently. And by the way, the other thing is I want to emphasize there are many, some of which are with us today, who feel I have a lot of evolution left to occur.
Right.
But
now he sounds like a comedian.
Yeah, he is.
My pathway here was one that was well, let me frame it for you this way. You brought up Colgate.
Yep.
When I left Colgate, there was no way in the world I would have thought I'd be sitting here today. There's no way I would have thought I would go back to school.
Right.
And so I left Colgate, and my loving parents would have nothing to do with me coming home. And so my first year out of undergraduate school, I was, in fact, to this day, despite what I say on a daily basis now, was the hardest year of my life. I worked in an all-boys high school in Connecticut, and I learned so much. I took 1 year and said, I got to go back to school. It's much easier on the other side
right.
Of the equation. So I went back to graduate school, went to New York City and New York University, did a master's in public administration, where I learned how to apply specific skills around financial management, and I went to work for the city of New York, where I had something that I'm still touched by today. I had the opportunity to oversee New York City's budget for homelessness at a time that the problem was enormous,
right.
Insurmountable in so many ways.
Right.
And I was applying my technical skills of financial management to being a good steward of the city's resources and working with the programmatic folks to figure out how can we best serve folks who were in deep need. I did that for a few years. I will tell you, I started under Mayor Koch and stayed during a change to Mayor Dinkins at the time. Mm-hmm. And I realized that many of the players were sort of just rotating around the table,
right.
but the problems weren't going away. So I decided to go back to school, where I felt that I could, frankly, dive a little deeper.
With your perspective and your experience now, as you get older, your lens, all of a sudden, your vision gets better. Your eyesight might not be as good, but your vision gets better. What can a student today find at Pembroke?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Just about anything they possibly want.
Okay.
And I think I go back to that notion of everything from, if you're a student today who sits there and knows exactly what they want to be, that path is available for you at Pembroke. From nursing to engineering to arts, to music, to history, to English, whatever that path may be. If you're a student who, by the way, doesn't know what they want to be, which, by the way, yeah, and I'm going to give you a statistic here. Nationally, 50% of students change their major within 1 year. Mm-hmm. Okay, the mind is still forming. Students are maturing. And so the reality is, if you don't know exactly what you want to be, that is what one of the special things that Pembroke has to offer: the opportunities across a broad spectrum and the ability to frankly change and evolve.
We're going to come back in the second set. We have a lot of topics to talk about. In particular, the NC Promise program, which I think a lot of people who have kids of any age will want to listen to. Opportunities abound in North Carolina and at Pembroke, UNC Pembroke. We'll be right back. Thank you. Welcome back to our second set. Our show today is all about UNC Pembroke, and before we get into some of the initiatives and some of the programs that I know you all want to speak about, Jody, I wanted to introduce you. You got a chance to listen to Robin and David in the first set. You've been at Pembroke for 2 years?
2 years.
You struck me the minute you walked in exactly how you emailed with me. High energy, completely like type A, which I love.
A little bit.
What did you think about their overview?
I thought it was incredibly powerful, and I think that's the one thing about UNCP that strikes you the second you walk on campus. And it struck me when I went for my campus visit before I was hired, it's magnetic. It's somewhere you want to be, and you feel it's a tangible sense of the difference that you're making in a student's life, and a tangible sense of the difference that you're making in the region, in the entire region, our 9-county service area. Yep. We know we're making change and we're affecting and creating positive solutions. You can't help but be high energy with that, right?
Robin spoke about the origins of the school, but can you speak a little bit about the diversity of the student population?
Sure. It's one of the things, as the Chancellor mentioned, we are the most diverse campus in the South, and we're very, very proud of that. And I think that makes for a unique student experience. Our students get to come from our region and from other regions, and they get to interact with people who have different ideas and who are from different walks of life and who have different thoughts, and that really enriches their experience, and it allows them to go out and be better citizens. It allows them to go out and create a better world for everyone, really. And I think it just is a unique thing that we can offer for our students, and our students love it. They love the dialogue that they have with people who maybe are from China or from Sweden, and they get to really experience those cultures in a way that's uniquely Pembroke.
Is it? Am I correct? Are there 16 different countries represented at Pembroke today?
It's slightly more than that now. I believe. I think it's 22, and growing. And so that is incredible. Several states all around North Carolina, South Carolina, throughout the Southeast.
Right.
And those international students also get a really great experience too, because they get immersed in our culture, and it's wonderful.
And the other piece of that, just to add, it's not only just about international. It can be a rural student who learns from their roommate who's from a big city.
Okay.
Even that kind of diversity makes a difference.
One of the big issues we've had on the show in the past have been jobs. And sometimes people that are being schooled today might be prepared for a world where we don't even know what the jobs are going to be in 5 or 10 years. And how does Pembroke approach that? Because there are new technologies. Some students are saying, "I just want to learn a trade." How do you address that?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to have new and innovative programming. So, for instance, we're adding programs and enhancing the programs we already have in cybersecurity. We're creating 3+2 pathways for engineering for students who want to go perhaps to NC State and get an engineering degree that we may not have, but we can give them an applied physics degree and get them on the foundation for that degree. We have to look at all the things that we're looking at expansion of our healthcare programs, so that we have programming, be it in nursing, be it nurse practitioner at the graduate level. We're looking at occupational therapy. We're looking at counseling programs. So we're adding that delicate balance of programming that definitely leads to jobs. But it goes back to what I talked about earlier, which is every student, regardless of major, has an underlying foundation of knowledge, of learning, of inquiry, of reasoning, so they can adapt to the jobs that, you're right, we don't know what they will be. That's right. 10 years from now.
Yeah. One of the major considerations, and there's so many young parents with kids, the cost of an education has skyrocketed. I mean, if I told you in the 1970s what a semester cost at Lafayette, I don't even know what you call it when it's 12 times more.
Expensive.
Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And student loans and the debt that the students carry these days when they get out. But Pembroke, you have there are some initiatives that you want to talk about that I think a lot of people would like to hear about.
So,
Robin?
Bill, if you look across the United States, student debt is $1.3 trillion, with a T, trillion dollars, and growing. So I actually believe, folks talk about North Carolina and our commitment or lack of commitment to education, but North Carolina actually, especially at the higher level, is very committed to higher education and to making it affordable. So NC Promise is a piece of legislation that was passed 2 years ago, and UNC Pembroke was blessed enough, I think, to be involved in that. Western Carolina, UNC Pembroke, and Elizabeth City State University. So a student who comes to UNC Pembroke next fall of 18, or a student who's there now and continues in fall of 18, and you're an in-state undergraduate student, your tuition is $500 per semester. That's a savings of over $2,600 per year, $10,000 4 years. So I tell students coming now, we can give you a $10,000 4-year scholarship right out the gate, no questions asked. That's a wonderful thing. And if you're out of state, and UNC Pembroke is located 20 minutes from the South Carolina border, if you're an out-of-state student, then your tuition is $10,000 per year cheaper, $40,000 over 4 years. Incredible value, an incredible deal. And basically, an out-of-state student can now attend UNC Pembroke at an in-state cost. So the goal is that students come, they get a quality education, they're prepared for their world, but they're not saddled with incredible debt. The average student graduating across the United States, the average is $35,000 to $40,000 that you're coming out of college owing, and in some of the other universities, it can be $100,000 or more for a 4-year undergraduate degree.
Yeah.
And if I can just interject
David?
as well, that it's important to understand in essence, $10,000 scholarship is for an incredibly high-quality education and an experience that if students want to know their professors, understand and have the support they need to learn the material, to succeed, and to critically evaluate, Pembroke is just an outstanding place to do that. We have a very sort of personal approach to education. Our students will know their professors. There's pluses and minuses to that. Ask any of our students. The plus is they get enormous attention. The negative is they get enormous attention.
I knew you were going to say that.
You better show up to class.
You can't hide out.
You cannot hide out.
You can't hide out.
They will see the student that they taught 2 years earlier on the sidewalk and ask them how they're doing.
Right.
Because that's just who we are. I think, the vast majority of our courses and our sections are less than 20 students in a classroom. Last semester, I think I had one section that may have been 49 students, but we don't have classrooms that seat more than, I think our largest classroom is a lecture hall of 75. So it's a different and very personal, high quality education.
What have the ramifications been of the NC Promise to your enrollment?
I guess that one's for me as well. We are really optimistic about what it's going to be. We've approached this entire cycle cautiously. We've seen increased interest from day one,
right?
Increased applications,
right?
Increased in open house attendance, and we're now seeing it in our new student orientations. So we think we will see an increase in our enrollment, but we've been very meticulous in the planning.
Right.
We're ready for that increase. We've conducted work all over the entire course of the year, getting every unit on campus from the academic side of the house in terms of our classes and our classrooms and our instructors to housing, to shipping and receiving. My favorite example of this, I led a task force to assess what do we need in case we have an increase in enrollment, and my favorite answer was the mail room or receiving office said we may need another refrigerator, and I was like, why? Refrigerated deliveries, food products that come in for students, and they're running out of room with what they have. So we really are ready for what comes.
It sounds to me like the management of the university is almost very organic versus the bureaucracy that you both have had experience with, and it's got to be very rewarding to be able to, is micromanage the right word, but to have your finger on the pulse and to be able to do something about it without having to pass through that bureaucracy. David.
Well, we still have more than our share of bureaucracy. David will tell you, as someone who used to, I would put my hand out and someone would put an instrument in it and I would make a decision within a second. It's a little bit different than that. But the point that we have here at Pembroke is that we are focused. And we do make the system work for us, but it's a lot slower, I think, than any of us would want.
But it is also, I would say, where the reward comes in, it's also rewarding. I'm going to speak for the Chancellor here, for the Chancellor and I. We're small enough to know some of our students.
Right.
Not all of them by any stretch.
Right.
But if we didn't have that ability to literally get to know our students and be involved in that, that would make the bureaucracy more difficult.
Yeah, it's been many years since I got out of college, and I didn't want to go to college, and I was forced to go sit down with my guidance counselor in high school, and I remember I picked a catalog up, and I liked the picture on the cover, and it had a pull-out application, and that's where I went my first year. So help me, I did. My parents just rolled their eyes. But I got smart, I transferred, I finished my last 3 years at Lafayette. And when I tell people today, when I look back upon my college years, it was the best socialization process I could have ever gone through before I would go to work. You learn how to work with people, you learn how to get along with people, you learn where you fit in. And those skills don't leave you. They only get better.
So, Bill, I'll go back to something that Jody said a few minutes ago about the diversity of our campus.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere recently that in 2050 there will be no major ethnic group in America.
Right.
So if you look at our campus, our students are learning to deal with people who are geographically different, who come from different economic backgrounds, and yes, come from different racial backgrounds, and come from different countries. So our students leave with that ability, with that socialization that you talk about, that will prepare them for the America of 2040 and 2050.
For whatever they're going to do. Yeah, we're going to come back in the third set. We're talking with UNC Pembroke Chancellor Dr. Robin Cummings, Provost Dr. David Ward, and Jody Phelps, who is the Executive Director of the University Communications and Marketing Program. We have to get you into Moore County more.
Absolutely.
You're the point person. And I also will tell you, you are probably an excellent role model for so many of the women students that come, because they can look at you. I mean, you are on the balls of your feet.
Always.
24/7. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set of All Things Moore County. This is a great conversation with three great people, Dr. Robin Cummings, Dr. David Ward, and Jody Phelps, all about UNC Pembroke. It's obvious to me, and I'm glad to have had this opportunity and would like to have you back again. The footprint of Pembroke is a lot different than I as a layman thought. And I think perhaps the image and the breadth of the programs and being so close to Moore County is something that people really need to hear about. It's not just the programs that you have, but it's the diversity. Where do you hope the footprint, what is it, where is it going, and where do you hope it's going to be in 5 years?
So, Bill, one of the vision that we have is that UNC Pembroke becomes a classic regional university. Again, strong foundations already there, but we see our mission as serving Southeast North Carolina.
Okay.
Now, we've got students from other countries, other states, etc., but Southeast North Carolina is where we live, and we want to make sure that we service Southeast North Carolina, and Moore County is part of that. So as we go out and we talk to legislators and other folks about the future for UNC Pembroke, we throw out that vision that as this engine, as this tool grows from 6,300 students to 73 to 83 to 10,000, it's going to impact the economy, it's going to impact the culture, it's going to impact the educational opportunities in this region for the students of this region.
And one example of that
David.
is, we have a very strong School of Business, accredited AACSB, which is the National Accrediting Organization for Schools of Business, fully accredited, just renewed. And I tell you, when I've been here a year, one of the first things I heard about when I came on campus was a new School of Business building and a state-of-the-art facility for these students. And Chancellor Cummings, with the help of the legislature, has brought resources, and friends, and significant friends of the university, has brought resources to bear. And I believe we'll be breaking ground on that school of building within a year. And so, our footprint is both, as you mentioned, academic programs, student programs, but it's also the physical structures we have available.
Yeah.
It's a very exciting time at the university.
I was very impressed by the UNCP Today Spring 28 edition. As I was looking through it and reading through it, I was taken by the strong alumni support. The Board of Trustees, the people who are donating money and giving back, and you're expanding that, are you not? It's not just the alumni now; it's other people too.
It's other people. We're bringing corporations to our campus, and they're getting involved. Again, they see the students that they want to recruit, and that they want to pull into their companies. So we've been blessed, very fortunate over the last 2 to 3 years to have some folks who have really stepped up to the table. We had the largest philanthropic gift that the university has ever had. This about a year and a half ago. I'll call Jim and Sally Thomas. Jim grew up in Pembroke, moved away, and became incredibly successful as a commercial real estate developer in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. Jim and Sally gave us $7 million. To help us grow our School of Business as well as some other areas. And that's on top of other money they've given. And we've had others. So it's growing. That culture of philanthropy is something that we want to be very intentional about developing at the corporate level as well as at the individual level.
There are a lot of pictures of you in this magazine where people are shaking your hand and giving you money.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I see. I haven't counted them all, but
there's just a couple.
Well, a school needs a catalyst, and you need, at the top, and it's growing, and the foundation is growing. The North Carolina Promise is something that is something that everybody should be paying attention to, because what might not have seemed like a possibility for some families now could become a reality. Mm-hmm. $500 a semester. Now that's not room and board. That's a separate.
That is
issue.
not room and board. That's tuition.
Okay,
so
that makes sense.
The cost of education, as you referred to at the very beginning of this, it's very, very expensive.
Oh yeah.
But if you take $2,500 off of our cost per year, that's a good hit there. But still, the students got room and board, books, and other things, and so that's why we go out to our friends and we talk about money for scholarships. 80% plus of our students receive some kind of financial assistance. 55% receive a Pell Grant, which is an indication of severe financial need to attend college. So our students are focused on their future. They realize that education is my path to the middle class. It's my path to a great future in a great country. But they don't have the resources necessarily financially to make that happen. Most of our students work 1 and many work 2 and some 3 jobs while they're going to school. I'm very proud of the hard work that they do. They're very focused on getting their education, but financial support is key.
We've had shows in the past on the culture of poverty. There was a book by Ruby Payne, you probably are familiar with it, how generation from generation cannot get over that hump, and their family, their kids are destined to repeat the patterns. But the North Carolina Promise is a way out and a way up.
Absolutely.
And I would argue, or make the statement rather, that it is a way out, a way up for many students, but it also is, in business they might call it the value proposition. I go back to that quality piece. Yeah. Okay, it's an incredibly high quality education, and NC Promise has just frankly increased our value proposition to any student, regardless of their circumstance.
Mm-hmm. Can I switch to athletics for just a minute?
Go Braves.
You have a very, you just did. You have a very vibrant program. You want to talk a little bit about some of the programs that you do have? And your boys were all basketball players.
Well, the youngest certainly was a very good basketball player, and I won't go into that, but he made the JV team at that blue school down the road. No big deal.
That's right.
But anyway, very proud of Adam and what he did.
Right.
But so at UNC Pembroke, we have 14 sports. We're a Division II school. We have 14 sports, over 400 student athletes. Our basketball team, we compete in the Peach Belt Conference, which is one of the most competitive Division II conferences in the nation. We won the Peach Belt Conference tournament last year in basketball, as well as the regular season. We were champions, and we did that the year before, and we're projected. I hope my basketball coach is not listening to do that next year, because he would cringe. We have a very strong, lot of excitement. Our football team's doing well. Baseball had an incredible year. Men's track and field. So,
and how do they do in the classroom?
They do very well in the classroom. We just won the Peach Belt Conference Commissioner's Cup for having the highest GPA of our student athletes across the board compared within the Peach Belt Conference.
Wow, that's impressive.
That's very impressive. In fact, the GPA of our student athletes is higher than the GPA of our regular students. And that's because you wonder why that might be the case. The reason it's the case is because you've got a coach that if you don't show up to class, coach is calling saying, "Hey, Johnny, where were you this morning? How'd you do on that test?" That makes a big difference in a student's life.
Isn't it true that student athletes have to budget their time better than non-student athletes?
Unbelievably so.
Right.
I mean, from the time they wake up in the morning until they go to bed at night, they got to be focused on their studies. Some do continue to work. They got to be focused on their athletic, getting ready to play their sport. Impressive.
Your Dave, your memories of college. You look back. What do you want the students who are enrolling at Pembroke to look back on in 10 years after their education at the school?
Oh, I think if a student can look back, or a graduate can look back, and a smile comes to their face because of their experiences, and they sit back and they think about, I'm in a job, I am in a career that I never would have imagined I was perhaps capable of. And there may be, I wouldn't mind if they look back and have a moment where they say, ooh, I'm glad I don't have to go through that again, because those struggles are sometimes the ones that shape us. Yeah. So I think it is the whole experience that makes for a mature adult and a thriving adult later in life.
Yeah. The best students are the ones that have good peripheral vision, that can see the whole playing field. So they're learning how to make choices, and they're learning to scan the whole field in front of them. And college does that.
That's correct.
Don't you think?
I do.
Yeah.
And it's tough. The world is a little different than when you and I were in college.
Oh yeah.
It's much more public in a social way, and so. I still hope that we create the environment at our university, that is safe for students, a safe environment. I don't mean just physically, I mean intellectually safe to explore ideas, intellectually safe to advance ideas and perhaps have them countered.
Right.
So our students need that. They need that to evolve, going back to an earlier word you used.
You mentioned the word social, and Jody, I want to ask you, one of the ways our world is different is social media. And how does Pembroke, where are they, and how are they on that platform? Because people can reach out from anywhere to find out who you are. We never could do that when Dave and I were kids.
That's right, not even when I was a kid.
We had black and white TVs.
You can find
remotes.
us on
no reception.
Yeah,
That's right.
No reception.
That's right. You can find us on any of the major social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. It's at UNC Pembroke on all of them, or /UNC Pembroke. We'd love to have you follow us. We try to stay as active as we can and get a lot of good information out there, and tell the stories of our students and our faculty and our staff through those platforms, because that's who we are. It's our people, and that's a great way to connect.
Yeah. Moore County Schools, this year, they've been on many of our shows for many different reasons, and there are a lot of passionate parents. And I bet you that some of these parent groups would be very interested in having some sort of get-together for the students. I've never seen a group of proactive parents as much as I have here for the schools, and they want to prepare their kids for the best. This is a different world we live in, and it's a tough world. Sometimes it's too many of the haves and the have-nots, and the parents want to give their kids every advantage they possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. We'd love to have all of the parents come visit us on campus.
I can actually put you in touch with a couple of catalysts here in Moore County who I think you could have some sort of discourse with, and only good things could come of it.
Always.
Yeah. David, I just ask you to just wrap up just your thoughts about Pembroke and what you'd like people to take away.
Probably the most important thing, the one word that comes to my mind is genuine. We're genuine. I think you'll find genuine in terms of the people who are there, genuine in terms of the quality of the education.
Right. Perfect. Robin, I'm going to give you the last word.
UNC Pembroke is all about student success. Our job, if the students aren't there, if the students don't succeed, then we haven't succeeded, and why do we exist?
Right.
So our job is to bring that student in and give them options, give them a foundation for the future.
Right. Al, I'm glad you could come and join us, and you've enjoyed listening to these people speak.
This has been great.
Right?
It really has. I never graduated. I got into the broadcast business and immediately was working 45, 50 hours a week.
We have a program. Come back.
Yeah.
You're looking at a gentleman who has reinvented himself many times, and it's the best gift that you can have to be able to do that, as you could, because you don't graduate. You don't get a degree and get a job, and that's it for it changes, it moves, right? That's what you want the kids to know.
That's right.
UNC Pembroke, as we said, Robin, the crow flies 56 minutes away. The NC Promise program is going to offer a lot of opportunities that some people might not have even realized existed, and we hope to have you come back this year and continue the conversation. Thank you. Dr. David Ward, thank you. Jody Phelps, thank you. And Robin Cummings, Dr. Cummings, thanks for coming in.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you all. Everybody have a great week.